Hi guys, welcome to my channel. For those of you that are joining me for the first time, this is a platform called The Redeemed, and I'm basically just trying to create a community or environment on a platform where like-minded Christians can come together and share and weigh in their views on different things and how it's affecting us that are in the world but are not of this world. And as much as we like to say that scripture and really think that we're not incorporated or we're not part of what is in front of us every single day, it does affect how some people think. It does affect how some people make decisions. It does affect how some people weigh their walk with the Lord, and it affects how it influences that walk with the Lord. And there's a lot going on, not just in the secular world, but a lot going on in the Christian community as well. And I really wanted to put together a platform for people to just non-judgmental, give your opinion, weigh your opinion, pick up what you can pick up, teach what you can teach, and hopefully create a community where we're just able to share our thoughts and our views, but still be able to encourage each other on our walk with the Lord and not deviate from that, and where anybody can come and basically say, hey, I'm struggling here, or I'm having difficulty here, and listening to this person's story or listening to the views and opinions of that person's story is helping me or is not helping me in any way, and is there something else that can be done. So when I first started recording for this channel, I initially wanted to create a Bible study group, and I think it went for about a year. I recorded some stuff. I never put it out. I wasn't sure the angle or the approach which I was using, because I did want to do something that's very interactive. This particular topic came to me in, I think 4 or 5 days ago. Obviously, as somebody who's growing up in a time and a season that was always heavily influenced by television or by the kind of entertainment that is placed in front of us every day. And I looked at it not just from my perspective as to what I was viewing, but I looked at it as well as what does that say, or what does that represent to other young women my age? What does it represent to young women who are younger than me, who are stepping into environments and into areas like this? What message is it saying? But primarily for the Christian woman, for the young Christian woman who's unmarried, who is still putting those pieces together, who has to go through navigating life and making life-altering decisions based on your view and understanding of Christianity, based on your belief system when it comes to Christianity, based on the influence put in place by your pastor or your preacher or your parents or the church community that is around you, but having to make that decision in this world, the way that it is, and the things that happen in it, in both the secular and in the Christian communities. And when this particular topic came up, I realized I wanted to share it because there were so many lessons in it and so many areas that, as a young woman and even as a young man, you could look at some of these characteristics and character traits and you could say, that's not what God would want for me. But sometimes, unless somebody points out certain things, we don't always see it, or we don't always comprehend it or process it in that way. People process things differently. There are those that learn by observing or by seeing what is in front of them. There are those that learn by experiencing certain difficulties, and there are those that learn through other people's experiences. And I've always been a huge fan of the Nigerian entertainment industry. I think AnnieIdibia is one of those people that I did grow up watching her work and watching her movies. And
our guest today inspired one of the most loved songs in Africa, African Queen. It is the lovely AnnieIdibia.
So all of a sudden, you need Celine to come and do this. When you guys were planning this, when you guys were doing all this, nobody got me involved in the deal. Nobody got me involved. Now all of a sudden, I'm supposed to go to the rescue and please, guys, I have a life outside this, okay?
Shut up, Celine, shut up!
Is that what it has come to now? Should we start telling each other our stories? where we're all coming from? Do you really want to hear all that?
And to be honest, I think at the stage in her life, she should have been among the top women in the Nigerian movie entertainment industry that would have been making strides right along with the Rita Dominics and the Ini Edos, getting contracts from Netflix to produce and direct her own films, right along up there with Kemi Adetola, with Genevieve Najis. That's the group of ladies that she came up with in her field and in the industry, and that's where she should have been, or that is the destiny she should have been fulfilling based on the talent and the gift that God has given her. And it comes all down to the statement that we often hear so much, that the person that you choose to marry can alter the path of your destiny and the path of your life. And this video is not to be down on her or to expose any of what she's going through or the challenges and the difficulties probably both her and her now to be ex-husband are going through, but it's to use their situation as learning, as a case study, if you would, and as Christians, how we should evaluate and how we should prioritize our values and our principles, and not allow the way we see things or how things happen in the world to influence how we make our decisions, and to be able to instill those principles and stand on them and say, this is what I stand for, this is what I believe in, and this is what I want, and if I'm not getting it, I'm not going to succumb to societal pressure, or I'm not going to succumb to religious pressure, because in some cases that is the case, and I'm not going to succumb to church pressures of having to choose a partner or marry just because I'm a Christian, or marry whoever is around me because that's what is expected of you as a Christian, or so that you don't live in sin. Basically, to marry so that you have the spiritual right to then engage intimately with somebody, even though you're probably making the wrong decision because you didn't weigh all the pros and cons, and you didn't weigh all your principles and your values. And so among the things that I really want us to pick up in this case study of AnnieIdibia and innocent Idibia is, I decided to title this video How Not to Do Marriage for Today's Christian Girl, because I think there's a lot of pressure to get married in the Christian community, but nobody really digs down into the how not to choose a partner, or what not to do when you're choosing a partner. It's always choose a partner, get married, because that's the right thing to do. But if you're going to marry someone just for the sake of getting married, and you marry someone who your principles are not aligned, your values are not aligned, your beliefs are not aligned, it can really destroy the destiny that God has for you. And this is one of those cases. Starting off with the foundation. Psalms 11 verse 3 says, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? And my understanding of that scripture is to say, if the foundation of something is not right from the beginning, it does not matter how righteous you are as a person, as a woman. It does not matter how virtuous you are in that marriage. It does not matter how much you pray, how much you fast. If the foundation is wrong, then it's outside of the will of God. And as much as we value marriages, unfortunately, that's why so many women are stuck in marriages where they are fasting themselves to death, where they are praying themselves to death in hopes of changing someone who they have no business changing in the first place, because they should not have been in that marriage in the first place. In the case of AnnieIdibia and innocent Idibia, I think from the very beginning the foundation was wrong. First of all, they were both very young, and I think her more so than he was, because at 15 years old you have no conception of left or right, and a young man of 24 years old who's just starting the height of his career, he's figuring out who he is starting to make money, he's in the world, he's all over the place. The girl he's dating at 24 years old is not necessarily the woman that he thinks he's gonna end up marrying. So to be 15 and to be 24, and I've seen this floating around on social media that he kind of groomed her. I agree and I disagree at the same time. Perhaps he did groom her, but I think he was too young to even understand what he was doing as well. And I do fault in a way that there was nobody around her, or none of her family members perhaps spoke up at the very beginning, like into those 4, 5, 6 years into the relationship, that nobody said anything. Or maybe they did and she didn't really listen. But at 15 years old, you have no idea who you are.
But your love story is, well, when he proposed, when you got married, everybody was talking about it. And it's been, when did he propose? Was it two years ago? Was it
2012?
2012? Yeah, so yeah, 2 years ago. And
February.
your whole relationship was pretty much played out like in, you know, social media, newspapers and everything. So let's take it back. How did you guys meet? Was it love at first sight?
Was it love at first sight? I don't think so. But I just knew there was that strong attraction. That first instant I was going into the gate and he was coming out. That's how I met him at the studio, even Israel studio. I just finished secondary school. I was working on something for AIDS Worldwide for women. That time was like a talent show we're doing, and then we went to the studio, and I think he was recording then. It was just him and blackface then. I don't think Face was in Plantation Boys then. So he was just coming out of the even Ezra gate, and I was going in, and kind of, you know, at the same time, it sounds like a movie, right? It isn't, but that's how it happened actually. And then he was coming out, I was going in, and and he said hi, and I said hello.
And the sparks, there was
That
sparks.
one, there was one that kind of small 1 second slow motion scene didn't take place. Then he went in, and then I saw him again.
Did he chase you? Did he chase you? Were you like, oh no, I'm not, you know, you're an artist? No.
He didn't. No, he didn't chase me. There was no chasing. No, we just became friends.
I think the next 10 years, well, I guess the age gap between 15 and 25 for her in her case, and him 24 and 34, he has, I think, about 4 children while he's dating her. And she has a child in between there as well. So now you're in a relationship with you and 2 other women. One woman has 2 of his kids, another woman has 2 of his kids, and then you go and have a child with him. At 24 years old, again, she's very young, she's very mature, she's spent 10 years with this man, this is all she knows. And again, you would think it's love, but is it really love? Because if it was, none of these things would be happening. So the red flags already started showing that he had polygamous tendencies, and I don't think, or it seems like she's not the kind of woman that was really for that. Otherwise, it would not have been so tumultuous. And I don't really want to go into the details of how their relationships was. If anybody wants to look it up, it's all over social medias. Her fighting with the girls in clubs and things like that, and the girls having his kids and the tantrums. It's all over. So if you do want to look up into the story, I can link some videos if you guys want to go and check it out. But that's not really the point. The point is that they were already in this tumultuous polygamous situation while dating, and at this point she has 1 child, and instead of walking away when seeing all of these things, she decides to dig down. And a lot of women make that mistake where you want to make it work regardless, and then sometimes we bring God into it. When all the problems have started, then we bring God into it and we're like, no, God, this just has to work. This just has to work. So now you start digging deeper and you start crying out to God to help you make it work. And sometimes there's what's called the permissive will of God, where you pray to God for something so hard that He makes it happen, not because it's what He wants for you, but because it's what you so desperately want for yourself. And that's the thing I love about God. He allows us to be, and He allows us to make our mistakes, and just hopefully that by the time we come out of it, it's not too late. And in this case, in the case of the Idibias, so he proposes to her after 13 or 15 years together and 5 kids. He proposes to her, and as he's proposing to her, one of the women is pregnant with another child. So she's 8 months pregnant and he's proposing to Annie. And she says yes, which at that moment, had she had certain rules and values and principles, and I think especially God-guided principles and values, she would have said no, because she would have realized that's not the relationship for her. That's not the will of God for her life. But again, sometimes we don't take things to God before we make a decision, but we want it so badly, and because we want it so badly, God allows it to happen. And we've heard this saying so many times, and I think as Christians we like to think that this only exists in the world but not in the Christian community, that marriage doesn't change a man. Marriage doesn't change anybody. In fact, all marriage does is tie you two together legally, because spiritually, if you are already being intimate with this person, spiritually you already have a soul tie. So all marriage does is tie you together legally. The families acknowledge that you are now one and that you are now married. It is celebrated, but in reality you're still the same two people battling with the very same issues, and you're going to have the very same problems if they are not then resolved. And I remember, I think there was an interview I watched where he was asked why he then chose to marry Annie out of all three of the women that he had kids with at this point, and he was dating them simultaneously at this point. And his response was because he said that he picked her because she would tolerate him. And that was not even a red flag, that was a red canopy, that was a red building, that she should have ran right then and there and gave him his engagement ring back.
Your relationship has been like a roller coaster ride, just ups and downs.
Ups and downs, but now very stable.
Okay.
Very
so
stable.
If it was like that, let's go back to like 2012. The 14th of February, wasn't it?
Valentine's
so
Day.
It was like up and down. When he proposed, I know some other women would have been like, this whole thing has been up and down, up and down. Why did you say yes? Jam question.
So I don't know if you've seen anyone, but if you are and you love him and he proposed, wouldn't you say yes regardless if you really love him?
But I'm a little bit like, I'm a little bit pessimistic. So if there's been like a lot of, different things and a lot of other people involved, I'd probably be like, let's just, talk about this. Let's just, So you were...
I mean, I didn't know the proposal was coming, but before the proposal, there was some sort of... We had like different... talks, but it's not like I didn't know. We're not even really together before the proposal. That's the truth. We're just being good parents to our, to my daughter. That's how it was. And so the whole proposal thing came as a surprise. The thing is, with Innocent, I knew I always loved him from when I met him till now. So it's either I'm with him or I'm not. So when he proposed, I said just because, I mean, if you love someone, you want to be with them regardless. If you really, really do love them. And then he's not such a bad person, so
why is it this is like, I've always wanted to know this. Why do you like because it was a bit of a surprise for all of us, because I remember looking at the picture saying, is that real? Oh my goodness, look at the ring. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. So why do you think he said, you know what, yes, we've had our ups and downs, but Annie is the lady that I want to marry? Why do you think he was, it was like, it was you?
So that question hard though.
you said yes because you've always believed that he was your soulmate.
Yes, yeah. I always thought so. Well, I want to think that he kind of realized that that's where his heart was. Not because I loved him, but because he loved me too and he wanted to be with me. I think he kind of realized that's where his heart was. I think he was confused for a long time. I don't know.
I don't think God would ever want anything like that for anybody. God is love and God is purity. So when somebody says, I chose her because she tolerates me, he's basically saying that out of all three of the women that I was dating, she was the one who had the inability to set boundaries or to establish boundaries that if I overstepped, there was no consequences for it. So in her mind, she thought it's love. And a lot of women tend to make that mistake where if you're dating a man and he has multiple women and he chooses you, or for some reason he keeps coming back to you, it's not because he loves you. Women tend to think, oh, he loves me, so he chose me. No, you're the one with the least boundaries. You're the one that he can get away with disrespecting the most. He can't get away with disrespecting the other girls. That's why they said no. That's why they didn't tolerate it. You can tolerate it, and that's why he chooses you. And that was his response. And immediately, that should have been a huge red flag. And as Christian women, that's something that we should instill in ourselves, to say that you cannot be somebody's option. You're either the only one or not at all. The minute that a man is moving back and forth between you and another woman, and this happens all the time in Christian communities, we hear of pastors doing it, we hear of preachers doing it. It's not individual to only people of the world. It happens in the Christian community as well. And the minute as a Christian woman you see that, or even as a Christian man you see that, you should know that that is not God's will for your life. Immediately you say to God, God, you've exposed this, I see it, and this is not for me, because you would not want this for me. Because God is a God of perfection. He would never allow a situation that is going to test your character and destroy your personality in that way. That can only be something that is from the devil. So it's sad to say that we as women don't know how to value ourselves enough to say that when somebody thinks that way, you should walk away, and you should hold faith in knowing and understanding that God will bring you bigger and better, and God will bring you somebody that loves you and only you, because they understand that a marriage and a union is supposed to be for the purpose of it must be destiny fulfilled. And if you don't understand that, especially as a woman in the Christian community, it's very easy to make that mistake. So this woman sacrificed basically herself, and she sacrificed her career, because during the time that he was building his career, she did nothing. She became his in a sense cheerleader. When he would go out touring and he would record albums, she's promoting his work, she's running around with him, she's encouraging him, and she's building him up. And her dreams are dying, her gifts are dying. The whatever it is that God wanted her to do with her life during that time, and the gifts that he had given her, were completely dying out. And that is one thing that as Christian women we should understand the value of it, and we should not lose ourselves in a man that way. Even if this is a pastor or preacher preaching on a pulpit, God put the two of you together for a reason. He's got something that he needs to fulfill. You've got something that you need to fulfill, and as a unit you've got something that you need to fulfill together, but not so that one of you is sacrificing themselves or their gifts for the other, unless it is in line with God's will. And even when it's in line with God's will, that one of you needs to make that sacrifice, it will benefit the both of you and not just one person. In the Bible, we've got the example of Queen Esther. Queen Esther was brought to the palace, and she was prepared a whole year. She was prepared for this man, and she was prepared for this king. And although he then chose her, she did not lose herself in the innuendos of, or the lap of luxury and affluence and wealth. She still maintained true to herself. And when it was time for her to stand up for her roots and where she came from, she used this marriage, in a sense, to save her people. She used the authority and the power that her husband wielded to save her people. But if she was the kind of woman who would easily forget herself in love or forget herself in a relationship, she would have forgotten where she came from because she was now a queen and she was living in a palace, so nothing affected her and influenced her. But she sought the face of God because she was rooted in who she was in God, and she never lost sight of who she was, and she fulfilled what she was supposed to fulfill. And that's why to this date we say, God, give me the heart of Esther, give me the warrior senses of Esther, because what she did for her people was despite the fact that she married the king. We've got Queen Sheba. Queen Sheba, the story that I like to, or the lesson that I like to learn from the story of Queen Sheba is the fact that she was a woman of affluence, she was a woman of wealth, she was a queen in her own right, in her own kingdom. But she understood the assignment biblically and scripturally that if she was going to bring a child into this world, it has to be based on the destiny that God has for her life. And it has to be a child of destiny. So even when she went to visit King Solomon, the scripture says, test the spirit. She tested the wisdom of King Solomon. And it was after she tested the wisdom of King Solomon and he fulfilled that which she was seeking for, that is when she laid with him and she had a child with him. And her son became, the son of King Solomon and Queen Sheba became one of the greatest king in Ethiopia. He was a destiny fulfilled son, or he was a destiny fulfilled child. He came to rule and reign in the wisdom, in the godly given wisdom of his father and in the royalty bloodline of his mother. It comes down to a relationship needs to be a kingdom relationship. Marriage needs to be a kingdom filled marriage. And the lessons in the Idibia's marriage is that it doesn't matter what you do. If you sacrifice your life and sacrifice your destiny for a man who you should not have been with in the first place, you cannot love a man into emotional and spiritual submission. You cannot do that. If the relationship and the foundation was broken from the beginning, the famous saying of if somebody shows you who they are, believe them. It's true, because in their case, he did not hide who he was. He never hid who he was from her. He didn't deceive her. He didn't necessarily lie to her. And I think even over the years, we've seen interviews or we've seen clips of innocent Idibia saying that I can love you, but I can sleep with another woman.
So they just negotiated. It was like a business negotiation. So for me, the way I look at marriage and the way I look at relationships and all now is just say what you want.
Yeah. I'm a little
I just want to fuck. Just say it.
Maybe you're cursing.
It got a little awkward. I honestly don't understand how we got here with Tuface.
I'm only gonna make love to who I love, but I can fuck when my man nature.
Yeah, but that goes.
Hold on. Wait, you saying you can...
No, he's not saying now.
Are you saying this specifically to you?
Why is Innocent speaking? What is he doing? Oh my gosh. Like, he really wants to upset Annie.
Like it or not, men are wired like that. A man would love a woman to hell.
100%.
But maybe he's somewhere.
Yeah.
His dick will just decide something.
No, he's mine, not his dick. It's not its own entity.
Okay, however you look at it.
That you meet a man and you fall in love with him, and now you want to drag this man out of the world into the church because you want him to be on the same par as you, but that person might not have the same belief system, and he might just be coming to church because you asked him to, not because he has a relationship with God, not because he was convicted by God, not because he wants a relationship with God, sometimes not even because he believes in God, but just because he likes you and he wants to follow you where you go.
Be friends?
Became friends, yeah, we're friends. I was seeing someone when I met him. You know, we're just friends. I was even preaching to him, so I was born again, like serious. No, that, oh God. But it's true. But then anybody I meet, I want to invite them to church. That's how I was, like everybody, everything. My whole life was about church and school that time. everything was church and school, church and school. So I wanted to invite him to church.
I want to come home tonight, I want to come home today. I went for the naked event. How was it? The naked thing was good, naked is good people, you looked out for me. And I don't know where was I, but it was, yeah, I don't know.
That can be a recipe for disaster, and in most cases it is. And sometimes there are women that have done that, and 10, 15, 20 years down the line, they're in these marriages, they're in these relationships, and they are still fasting themselves to death to try and change this person when they had no business being in a marriage with this person in the first place. So I think AnnieIdibia was very young. She had no idea who she was. Her character was not established. Her principles were not established. That's why she didn't know how to set boundaries in her relationship and to realize that this was the wrong relationship for her. And that's just some of the few lessons that I picked up listening to this woman's story, watching her story unfold over the years, and to a point where now she has been so publicly humiliated and she's completely lost sense of herself. And she's got 2 daughters that are looking at her that for the past 15 years have grown up thinking that the relationship like this is normal, because AnnieIdibia's oldest daughter is now the age that she was when she met her father. So imagine that little girl meeting somebody now, and that's it for the rest of her life. So it's very sad, and I do hope that she gets it together. I pray that God gives her the strength to go through it and fight through it. I pray that God will help her really come out of it so that she can be strong for her daughters and teach them that there is another way out. And I do hope that God gives her a second chance at life and at getting herself together. In all, it looks like she stayed in the marriage later on out of codependency and possibly out of resentment, because when you waste so much of your time with one person and you lose all the time to be able to build something for yourself, you end up resenting that person, and you stay because you feel like you've already lost so much to this person that they just have to put up with you whether they like it or not, because where else are you going to go? And you feel like you can't start over. And Annie, I think she's in her early 40s. So the feeling of how do I start over at this stage can drive any person into depression and into substance abuse and completely losing sense of self. And when she joined the show Young, Famous and African, there was quite a few things that people picked up from the very beginning already. The way she carried herself, it was her husband, her husband, her husband. You could see that her entire life was consumed by this man and about this man, and if not for him, she doesn't exist. And right now she's probably feeling that she doesn't exist without him because he's all she knows. And there was something that Kanyambao said to her.
Man will leave you in the desert without water.
Statement as it pertained her marriage. And it's the truth. Just because you sacrifice yourself for somebody does not necessarily mean that they would do the same for you. So I hope she gets it together. But all in all, to round this up, I wanted to say, as Christian women, we do need to evaluate. Despite knowing God, despite believing in God, we still have to be very realistic about the choices that we make in terms of a partner. And we do have to really discuss these things and teach one another these things, because just because we are in God, just because we believe in God, just because we want to get married or it's the right thing to do, just because we meet somebody, even you might even meet somebody in church, it does not necessarily mean that that is the right person for you. It does not necessarily mean you are spiritually or emotionally compatible. It does not necessarily mean that your destinies are aligned. And it does not necessarily mean that that's God's purpose for your life. You have to test the spirit. You have to seek the face of God first. And you have to be realistic about who the two of you are, your backgrounds, and how that comes together before making that decision. Not just because you believe in God, because God makes miracle happen, but God will not change somebody because you want that particular person to be a type of way, then he ceases to be God. It has to come together the right way for God to be involved. But God cannot make it right just because it's what you want. And that's why I think even nowadays we've got preachers, pastors, prophets that are preaching on pulpit every single day, but they are in bad marriages, or they are in marriages that are breaking apart, or some women in the church are being cheated on by their preaching, Bible thumping husbands, not because they're horrible people, but they just made bad decisions when it came to choosing a life partner, because they were just not the right partner for them. And eventually the cracks will start to show. And I hope that this can be a platform where we sometimes touch on these things and touch on other things that affect us and influence us as young Christians in the Christian community, and what we can learn and how we can use those teaching moments to make better decisions and hopefully bring a better generation of children into the world, and be able to align our decisions in our everyday walk with God, and to really lean on God for those things, but from a realistic perspective, not just the illusion or the idea that God will make it right just because He's God. God is a fair God. He's a just God. Thank you so much, guys, for spending time with me this afternoon. I will be uploading more content. I still plan to do the Bible study sessions. I'm hoping that the community will grow to a stage where we could probably be doing these live, or discussing some of these topics, or discussing some of these things as we do the Bible studies together. And if a topic comes up, something that you think that we can all learn from as young Christian women, please feel free to put it forward. Let's discuss it. Let's see what we can all learn from it, and